This video today is about Käsesahnetorte, and Käsesahnetorte in English would mean cheese cream cake. So it's a kind of cheesecake, but it's totally different from what you know as a New York cheesecake or so. And it's a little bit difficult to explain, so just stay tuned and see what I'm doing. I need two sets of ingredients. I need one set of ingredients to bake a cake and the other set of ingredients for the filling. So I would start with showing you the ingredients for baking the cake. I need 3 eggs, pinch of salt, 65 grams of cornstarch or potato starch, is that what you have on hand? Then I need 75 grams of flour, 100 grams of sugar, 3 tablespoons of really hot water, and 3 teaspoons of vanilla sugar. And if you want to know how you can make your own vanilla sugar, the recipe is right here. As of the equipment, you might want to have one of these cake rings, and you can either bake your cake in the cake ring or you just use a baking pan. The size is 26 centimeters or 10 inches in diameter. Also, it would be good if you have a sieve where you can later sieve the flour and the cornstarch. All right, so now let's get started. I start with beating the eggs, and I have to beat them really long. So let me first put them in here. And I'm already adding the sugar and some of the vanilla sugar. If you do not have vanilla sugar and you don't want to make any, then you can just use some vanilla extract or half a teaspoon of vanilla paste. That works just as fine. Okay. And I will start whisking it, and while I'm whisking it, I will gradually add some of the really hot water. So you can see that this is a really nice and fluffy texture here, and it even holds its shape. Let's put this aside. Now next I am mixing the cornstarch and the flour. And I'm also adding a pinch of salt. So mix this. And now I give this through a sieve, and I want this to be really, really fine. Okay. Can actually remove this from the machine, and I give it a very short and easy mix with this tool, and then I will start and fold it. And I really don't want to lose the fluff in this egg mix, so folding, what does folding actually mean? It does mean that you scrape from the bottom to the top. And this is what I'm doing here. And I'm doing this for as long as it needs to incorporate the entire flour mix. And you just heard the beeping here, that's my oven. I already preheated the oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 180 degrees Celsius. Okay, so this goes into my baking pan. You can wrap some parchment paper around your cake ring and bake it in that. That is actually a really good idea because it lets the cake bake a little more even. So these cake pans that you can buy, they usually have some sort of non-sticking treatment, and that leads to the dough rising less on the sides and more on the top, so you always have some sort of dome. However, I decided to play it safe today since I'm making a video and not doing the cake ring baking, since there's always a little bit of a risk that the dough will come out on the bottom if you don't wrap the paper around perfectly. So, and you notice there's no baking powder in here because we try to have a very even layer of cake, so we don't want to rise it. We want the air from the egg mix to give it all the fluff that it needs. And it doesn't have to rise very much because I want a rather flat cake layer. Okay, so that looks good to me. Spread it out a little bit. And this goes into the oven now for about 15 minutes. So this is the baked cake. And this cake will be the base and the top of the Käsesahnetorte. And I will have to let this cool in the baking pan, and then I will later remove it. Now, after removing the cake from the pan and when it's cooled, I could continue and make the rest of the cake. But it's better to let the cake rest one day, because then it will not fall apart easily and it will be more stable and easier to work with. And that's what I'm going to do. I will let this rest overnight and then I will continue tomorrow. Now let's see what we need for the filling of this cake. First of all, we need 500 grams of quark. What is quark? Quark is one of the many dairy products that we have in Germany, and it's kind of a very fresh cheese. It looks a little bit like yogurt or Greek yogurt. It's more dense than Greek yogurt though, and it has a different taste. It's like a thing that's somewhere between cream cheese and yogurt. So since you cannot or can barely buy quark here in America, you will have to make it yourself. And how I made this quark you will find in this video. If you don't want to go through the trouble, which is not really trouble, to make quark, you can instead use some Greek yogurt and strain it a little more so it becomes more dry, but it will still taste different. It's not the same thing, but it's a substitute. In Germany, we sometimes use cream cheese instead of quark, but you can't really do that here in America because the cream cheese here in America has a lot more salt than in Germany. In Germany, it's slightly salted, while here it's really salty. So I wouldn't recommend using that for this cake. So beside the 500 grams of quark, you will need 400 milliliters of cream. And I would also suggest that you have some extra cream for decoration. You will need also 2 cans of mandarins or tangerines and 9 grams of gelatin. And the gelatin packages in Germany have 9 grams, while the American Knox brand has only 6 grams per package, so you will have to use a little more than 1 package. Then you will need 90 grams of sugar and an organic lemon. For decoration later, you might also want to use some confectioner's sugar. I will start with the tangerines. So it's funny, people here call them tangerines, but on the can it says mandarins. In Germany we say Mandarinen. And I want to keep some of the juice, 75 milliliters to be precise. And because I want to decorate my cake later with a little tangerine, I will pick out like 12 of the nicest tangerines here. And I'll set these aside and open the second can. Okay, and I set this aside also so that the juice can continue to drain out of this. My next step is to soak the gelatine. So you soak gelatine in cold water and let it stand for about a minute or a little more than that. I set this aside and I continue with the quark. So I fill the quark into my mixing bowl, and you can see it's a quite dense thing. If you use some Greek yogurt instead, it might be a little more soft, so maybe you want to use a tiny little bit more of the gelatine if you're doing that. Then I'm using my organic lemon and put some lemon zest into the quark. Make sure you don't get any of the white parts that is underneath the lemon zest, because that would taste bitter. And the lemon gives this cake a very refreshing and nice taste. Together with the tangerines, it's a really delicious, refreshing cake. And although it's of course perfect for summer, it's also a really good cake for winter. So I'm also using some of the lemon juice. Don't want to use too much. I'm adding this. And of course the sugar. Right. So this will have to mix now for several minutes until it is really, really fluffy and light and airy. So this looks nice. And now I have to continue with the gelatine. So let's take a look what it looks like after soaking in the water. It has become kind of a gel mass. And I'll take now 75 milliliters of the tangerine juice and I will heat it a little bit, not too much. So what you need to know is that gelatine should not be heated above 70 degrees Celsius. I'll have to look up what that is in Fahrenheit. So don't make it too hot and don't dilute the gelatine over the stove top. That might be too hot on the bottom, so that's something I did wrong in the past. I just learned that this is where the gelatine part often fails, and I want to avoid that. So I'm now using the hot juice and adding the gelatine. And the gelatine needs to dilute now in the hot liquid. Okay, and you can see it's all liquid now. And if I would add that to the quark directly, I would end up with some lumps. So I have to use some of the quark and first dilute that. And a little more. So now I can mix it with the quark. I'll give it another round with the mixer. So I will mix this now for 5 minutes. Okay. Now this goes into the fridge for about 20 to 30 minutes. And because I need this bowl to prepare the cream, I will just fill it into a different bowl. Time to take care of the base and top of the cake. So this is the cake that I baked yesterday. And I need to cut this into 2 halves now. So then you have to decide which side you want to have as a top and which as a bottom. I think I will take the top here as the bottom and later put this on top of the cake, probably this side up. So around this cake I will now put my cake ring. And I do it quite firm so nothing will come out later. And so for the top part, I want to section this before I put it onto the cake later. The reason for that is that it is difficult to cut this cake later from the top to the bottom because it's kind of soft, and it's easier to cut it later if the top is already sectioned. So I'm using this part here, and I want to have 12 slices of cake. And now I see where I need to cut this. All right, and I set this aside too. And now I'm just whipping the cream. I don't have to add anything to that. I'm just whipping it. So things are coming together now. I will add the cream to the quark. And I'll mix these things together now. So now here are 2 options. So the first option is you throw all the tangerines that you have not set aside for the decoration right into this mixture. The other method, and that's what I'm doing, is to make a layer of the tangerines somewhere on the bottom and then fill with the remaining quark mixture. So the way I'm doing it is I make a thin layer of the quark, just enough to make the tangerines stick. And now I want to have 1 layer of tangerines just around the outside because that's gonna look really, really nice. So I'm putting them along the rim. You can see here I put 1 layer all around the edge of the cake, and then I randomly put some tangerines in the center and distributed them kind of evenly. And now I'm just adding the remaining cream. And now here comes the top of the cake. So as you know, I pre-cut it, and I'm now just filling in my puzzle pieces here. And some make them like kind of overlapping. I'm not doing that though. So, and I press it a little bit down to make sure that it really connects with the cream underneath. Now, of course, the cream has to set, and that will take about 5 hours, and for these 5 hours this cake will be in the fridge. 5 hours have passed. Now it's time to take a look how this has turned out. I have to carefully loosen this. So let me tilt this a little bit so you get a glimpse of the side here. You see the tangerines. I will show it a little better in the pictures later. So now all that's left is to decorate this a little bit. And for that I'm using some confectioner's sugar. Okay, and also some cream that I've whipped. And you remember the tangerines that I set aside at the beginning, and these will go here now. And I really can't wait to eat this cake. It's been quite a while since I had this, and I really like Käsesahnetorte. It's one of my favorites. Well, basically all cakes are one of my favorites, to be honest. I really love German cakes. But this one is something I love especially. So here we go. Yeah, so I'm tempted to cut it now to see how it's on the inside, but I'm waiting before I want to make some pictures, so I will show you how the slices look on the pictures. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell button, and I hope you stay tuned for the next video.